Alright, hello guys. Just gonna be a super chill stream tonight, just gonna work on some 3D modeling. You can see I have a lightsaber here that we're gonna try to finish up. So I've done most of the work on this already, including some tweaks to make it actually functional, because Ezra's lightsaber is an animated lightsaber in an animated TV show and has some parts that just kind of aren't gonna work in the real world. The main difference you can see here, I had to make the neck wider, which unfortunately kind of changes the design a little bit, but it's the only way to get a blade in there. So it is what it is. But what I need to do basically is kind of hollow all this out and make all the parts functional in a way that's going to benefit me down the line. So I have here, I picked up this sort of super cheap core from AliExpress that has a bunch of preloaded fonts and like it has a full RGB RGB LED, say that 10 times fast. So it does a bunch of fun stuff. I figured I'd pick one up and check it out. So I'm building this as sort of a sleeve to go around this. So you can see I have measured and created a framework of this object here, this wireframe. And then I'm going to be making the other lightsaber fit around that, which means that I want to have things like an end that screws off so that I can charge this and then put it into the other piece. I also am going to be buying a blade, a 7/8" blade, which is a little thinner than what's considered standard. However, if you've watched Rebels, you know that those blades are like incredibly thin, so actually kind of works out. But I do want that to be pretty stable inside this. I'm going to be 3D printing most of it, so it's certainly a lot of that kind of press fit and like mechanical engineering little tweaks we're going to be doing tonight. If you have any questions about 3D printing, please let me know, or 3D modeling, any of this kind of stuff. I am working in Rhinoceros 6, or Rhino 6, which is my favorite program for modeling. There are lots of options. This is just my favorite. How are you guys doing? You're talking about crepes and spaghetti. Emily is just testing buttons here. I mean, yeah, if you need to test the subscription button just to make sure it works, like, go for it, man. I'm not gonna complain. And like Emily just demonstrated, if you have a Prime subscription and you're not using your Prime sub, then you can throw it at whatever streamer you want and it doesn't cost you any money. So the colors that I use are only for my own visual, and to an extent for grouping as well. These don't get printed, they don't mean anything, they're not different materials. It's just that I can tell what I'm doing, and I can do something like select all the pink parts in one command, and it makes it a little quicker for me to group parts and to move things around. Oh man, being comfy when you need to do household chores, rough, man. I did laundry yesterday, but I only just barely made it off the couch. So this green bit, I am not going to be 3D printing. That's just a representation of the blade that I'm planning on buying. I will probably buy a 34-inch. I usually buy them based on both my own height and how far into the lightsaber it's gonna go. I'm trying to have this go pretty far in just because it'll make it a lot more stable. A lot of commercially manufactured lightsabers are made out of aluminum. They're usually milled on a lathe, which means that they're quite strong. The fact that I'm 3D printing this means it is not going to be quite as strong as aluminum. So I am trying to definitely think about reinforcing it as I go. I'm not going to be doing combat, I'm not going to be dueling with it. It's pretty much only for show, but I still try to build stuff pretty strong. Yeah, I did do my best, Emilianne. Actually, I made it really far. I still have a little bit of laundry to fold, but you know what? It's clean laundry. Alright, let's see what we're doing here. So you'll see that a lot of these parts are currently separate and are not connected to each other. That is deliberate because it'll make it a little easier for me to do what I need to do here. But I am going to need to kind of go through and connect all these pieces into a single uniform piece. Basically what you want when you're 3D modeling with the intent of 3D printing is you want to have a single solid object in Rhino that exports as what's called a watertight mesh, which is, as you'd imagine, a single surface that has no holes in it, but also doesn't have anything on the inside, because that is going to interact the best with your 3D printing software and create the best quality print, as well as a print with no errors, hypothetically. So like you can see, this part is currently a single part that if I were to do something like explode, I can take off all these little layers. Oh, you know, oh no, I thought I found an error. I didn't. But you can see in there, it's pretty much just a single hollow part, kind of like a Lego. But we don't want this to be taken apart, so we're gonna leave that alone. Another thing that I'm going to be doing here is kind of separating out different parts for printing. So like this switch, I'm going to print on its own and then glue it onto the finished product. Or maybe even use magnets. I'm thinking about using it to cover up kind of some of these buttons here, so that hypothetically I could charge the lightsaber without having to remove the guts every time. That would be nice. But like this sort of faux lever thing, I'm probably going to print separately from the main body. Just kind of a lot of the little bits and bobs. Especially now that I have newly acquired a resin printer, I can do a lot of really fine detail work like that. So what I'm doing here is called a Boolean union. Boolean union used to be a little buggier than it is now in older versions of Rhino. It's actually pretty good now. But basically with a Boolean command like that, I can take, for example, this box and this cylinder. If I select both and then I click this button, then they become a single piece. And it sort of removes all the stuff that was in the overlapped area. So now if I were to explode this, I could basically do that and you'd see it turned into a single solid surface. So I'm just gonna kind of Boolean some of these together. And sometimes it gets a little cranky and you kind of have to get in there and do it manually. But if you're really lucky and if you've designed, well, I shouldn't say lucky, if you design your part correctly and Rhino isn't feeling cranky, then you should be able to do this for pretty much everything. I've also left a little hole here through which I'm going to attach a, not a D-ring per se, but the triangle-shaped version of a D-ring, but an actual metal one. Because something that thin, you can 3D print it, you absolutely can, but it's not going to bear weight. That's going to be way too thin and way too brittle. So sometimes it does behoove you to use metal fittings for strength or for utility or for any number of reasons. So what I've brought in here is, this is from another project of mine. This is actually left over from when I modeled those Witcher swords, but this is a threaded male and female fitting that I happen to know fit well and have a good tolerance. So I'm hoping to kind of cannibalize some of this threaded fitting that I've made before so that I can have this bottom section screw off. And then as I said before, I'll be able to access the guts of the lightsaber a little more easily. Oops, I left a little bit of that behind, huh? What was that?
Been around the world, been to many places, and I've seen Beautiful faces, and sometimes I get lost, wishing I could have everything, but everything is nothing without you. I'll be so incomplete. I, oh.
Sometimes it gets a little cranky about my zoom settings. Here we go.
So beautiful when you ride here with me. You make everything okay.
So I often try to be sort of iterative in how I work, by which I mean, like, you'll see what I just did. I just copied this part. If I'm kind of thinking that I might want to go back, I might want some of these surfaces later. If I start working on this part and I don't like the direction that I took, or I need something different, then I have that older iteration, and it's much faster to go back a few steps than having to like sort of start from scratch. This is true for a lot of design work. A lot of 2D designers, graphic designers, illustrators work like that too. It's also really good for client work, because sometimes a client will be like, well, we liked the version you did 4 steps ago, and you're like, okay. Rhino is also kind of nice because they give you a lot of history states. So what I actually just did is I realized that I wanted to retain this part before I did any of that Boolean operations kind of stuff. I want all of these separate parts just in case. So what I did is I basically copied to my clipboard that version. So now I have this unjoined copy and I have a completely joined copy. So the joined copy is what I'm going to work on now, but I have a backup in case. It's good also for just kind of experimenting, trying stuff out. I am largely self-taught in Rhino. I mean, you know, it's the internet. I've certainly looked up a lot of things and used a huge number of resources that other designers have put out there. But a lot of it's kind of just trying stuff out, seeing if it works. So let's see what we're working with here. I would like this to be over here. Okay, one thing I'm gonna do... Did I already do this? Let's see, so I have a bunch of my windows set on shaded mode right now. I'd actually like them to be in wireframe mode, so that I can see what I'm doing a little bit more easily. There are quite a few visual modes. There's rendered, ghosted, X-ray, technical, artistic, pen, arctic, ray traced. They all have different purposes. I mostly work in wireframe and shaded. So shaded means that it's completely solid looking like this. You can't see through the part at all. And then wireframe obviously is a wireframe. So the nice thing about wireframe and about the colors that I pick is that I can sort of see things that are inside other things, or how close things are to each other. I have a whole lot of options. So you can see and hear that inside that tube there's actually another tube that I've added, and that tube is, again, this piece. It's the same size as this piece. So what I need to do is make sure that this tube fits snugly or well inside the piece that I'm making. And kind of a funny thing about 3D printing is that it's extraordinarily precise, but most 3D printed parts are off by kind of a fraction of a millimeter. So you are going to get a better fit if you're trying to do really precise mechanical work. If you offset surfaces that are going to be butting up against each other, you should offset by a very, very small amount. And then you won't have to sand it down, which is doable, but extra labor, so it's nice to not have to do that. There's generally a little bit of sanding or trimming that goes into pretty much any multi-part print, but As much as you can avoid doing it, you know. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this tube, I'm gonna offset it. Oh, no, I want to offset surface. Not to be confused with a standard offset. And then, so the arrows decide whether I'm offsetting out or in, both of which are an option. I often use 0.001 as a tolerance. That's a lie. What was that? Sometimes you trick yourself. Oh, I see. There we go. I had my distance set to 1. There we go. Let's try that. That's a little better. But I do have it set to have curved edges, which I'm not sure I really want. Corner sharp. Solid yes. Tolerance 1. Okay, that's gonna be a little better. So now I have 2 shapes, which to the naked eye probably look like they're the same size. But using this larger shape is just, it's gonna give me a better final product. So let's see, I'm gonna change the color on this so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so the way that this core I have is designed, you can see there's kind of a lens here. Is that in camera? There we go. There's kind of a lens here. That, that's where the light's gonna come out. It makes sense. But so I want to make sure that the blade that I end up buying exactly abuts that lens. I want them to be as close together as possible. So I'm gonna kind of put this here. You'll also notice in Rhino you have the option to free drag stuff as much as you want. But if you want to do really precise kind of stuff, you are better off using some of the commands to do that, like the move command. So I can pick a point. Or not. Oh. Excuse me, this is a brand new install of Rhino, so I don't have some of my settings set up. There we go. That's better. So now they exactly touch each other. Yes, they need to abut each other. Sadly, I have long since passed 69 followers, but we're aiming for 420 next time, huh? We gotta get the nice numbers. I don't know why I thought about that. Okay, I'm not actually sure what that cylinder is. There's a cylinder in here, but I'm not sure why. Well, I'm going to hide it for now. So another thing you can do, I'm doing a lot of keyboard commands here, but I just hit Control-H, which means that a part kind of gets yeeted into an alternate dimension. It doesn't go anywhere. It's still there. It's in the exact same spot, but it's in an alternate reality now. And I can summon it back whenever I want to, but it won't interfere with what I'm doing right now. So I'm also going to do that with this line, and this line, and this line. Yeah, the yeet dimension. I think I'm going to call it that forever from now on. Very technical terms I'm teaching you guys tonight. Alright, so one thing I actually think I'm going to do here, just in terms of iterating my work, I am going to copy this entire piece and kind of just move it off to the side here. So this is just considered a backup. It's just gonna sit here and exist, and I'm hopefully not gonna need it at all. But if I need to go back any steps or pull any of those parts, then it'll make my life super easy. So let's boolean all these. Do all of these little Real Pursuit pieces. And that centerpiece. see, what am I doing in here? So there's a piece there, that's solid. This is solid. Let's take a look at this. Okay, this is all not connected right now. There we go. Let's see, I want this frame to be a wireframe as well. There we go. That's a little better. So let's do, I'm gonna do a cap command here. Not to be confused with Captain America. So the cap command, basically, if you have a part that has one open side, you can ask the program to just automatically render that last side for you. It doesn't always work, but it usually does, so it kind of saves you time doing that manually. So I'm gonna boolean those two, so this is a solid part now. I'm gonna bring that part back, and boolean this, and then I'm gonna get rid of this, because I don't need it. And now we have kind of a funky little fake bolt lever thing. And like, this isn't gonna do anything. I mean, just looks good. As with most things on lightsabers, let's be entirely real with ourselves here. What I am gonna do though is that these do kind of intersect a little bit, or at least it, well, okay, it kind of doesn't. I would like it to though. So this line here is the exterior of this cylinder. And you can see that it's lighting up yellow. And then this is the backside of that lever. And they're just kind of kissing right now. But I would like them to overlap a little bit more, because if this cylinder has a flat area, it'll be easier to place the lever part after I've printed it all. It'll be much easier to put it in the right place and to glue it on without it falling off as well. In fact, what I might do, I often use kind of like a pin system to connect parts if I think that they're going to be fragile. So it's kind of like if you've ever built IKEA furniture, you know how a lot of the parts have pre-drilled holes, and then you get a bunch of those little pegs and you kind of shove the pegs in all the little holes and then it all lines up? Basically, I make that. So I'll print a bunch of little pins and it helps everything line up, but it also helps it all be stronger. So I'm gonna pull this back a little bit. I'm considering making a tiny little pin to connect these together. I haven't decided yet though. I might come back to it. One thing I want to do, however, so you can see here on the art in this upper left corner, there's this kind of, I don't even know what to call it. There's like a little recess with these little raised buttons in it, which I haven't modeled in yet. So I am gonna do that. And the way that I'm gonna do that is I need a cylinder. Give me a cylinder, please. There we go. I have cursed myself a little bit because I'm trying to do this at a 45-degree angle, so let me fix that. It's much easier to do things in the X, the Y, or the Z axis than it is to do them at an angle. You'll just end up with a better product. Oops. There we go. Okay, so I've just made a copy of that circle and rotated it so that it's on one of the axes. This is just gonna make my life a little bit easier. Oh, it thinks I'm going from the center. This is my problem. There we go. That's a little better. Oh, what? Never mind. many jokes are made how sometimes this program just rebels against you. Sometimes it just decides it knows more than you do. It is with much affection that Rhino users scream. Okay, so I've just kind of arbitrarily made a little cylinder here. I can adjust it later. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rotate this back. And in this case, I'm going to do that numerically rather than manually. And then I'm going to be able to move this here so it lines up with that first circle that I had placed. But what I'm gonna do is, because I want it to be kind of recessed, you can see that this, well, actually in the art you kind of can't see anything. However, parts of this lightsaber are based on lightsabers from the original trilogy, and this little doohickey shows up on Luke's first lightsaber. So I actually know what that part looks like in real life, and I am going to recess it by going like this. Well, actually there's an easier way to do this that I just thought about. Okay, I'm gonna do that. Because what I'm gonna be able to do is basically take this and then ask the program to use the cylinder to cut it in half, like that. And then I can have the cut the other way in reverse. Take this cap off, and suddenly I've got a little recessed hole. It's what everybody dreams of, you know. It's a little deep, actually. Deeper than I'd like. I think I'm gonna make that a little bit more shallow. It's being cranky. Let's see. Oh, give me an apparent intersection. It's fine. See, this is what I mean. Many Rhino users have a great deal of affection for Rhino's many eccentricities. Which, to be fair, not that different from Photoshop or anything else. Okay, let's try this. Alright, I like that a little better. Looks pretty good to me. Alright, now we gotta make these two sort of little button bits in there. So again, I'm gonna do that on an axis that is a little easier to deal with. So I'm just gonna kind of approximate this. I always feel like modeling is kind of this combination of knowing when you need to be enormously precise and when you can kind of just make it up as you go along, you know? And this type of modeling does follow a little closer to mechanical engineering than it does sculpting. You'll see a lot of people who are doing things that are like human figures, animals, even just sort of very ornamental type work will use programs that are a little more suited to hand sculpting in that way. And so that's a very different workflow. Oh, that's big. Let's try... Oops, there we go. This tool kind of irritates me sometimes. No. Huh. You can see why. There we go. Alright, let's try something else actually. Sphere diameter. Quad. There we go. That's a little more what I wanted. I'm just gonna combine these two shapes. And then this, I'll be able to rotate. And kind of put in here. So one thing I definitely do want is I want this to be centered. So I'm gonna see if I can get it to do what it's supposed to do here. Let's do that. I would like it to be a little bit shorter though. Oh, that went somewhere. Huh. Sometimes you get a weird snap like that. There we go, that's a little better. Then I want that second one. I'm gonna move that down just a little bit. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Actually, I liked it where it was. I mean, this might be kind of tough to print, actually. I think my resin machine could do it, but I might have to just try. There are certain parts, honestly, that I just have to kind of go, hope for the best. I'm just combining parts here. There we go. So I'm not 100% sure. I'm gonna need to check that there's not any design on the back of this particular part of the lightsaber in the middle here. This lightsaber shows up pretty late in the show, and there are not a ton of high quality references of it. And it's quite rare as well to be able to buy it from any of the numerous lightsaber manufacturers. It's not a super popular one. So I'm gonna have to check my reference. Let me actually check that real quick. Actually, it looks like there is something on the back. There's a vent. Yeah. Huh. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty easy to do. There's basically kind of a 3 lines. There's a little bit of a vent on the back of the lightsaber here. And it is, let's see if this is the drilled hole. It's here. It's like right here. Alright, I'm just gonna kind of freehand that. It's such a small detail. I don't feel like I need to, you know, bring in a reference and do all that kind of stuff. So let's start with a little rectangle here. Then we're gonna add a little circle. Gonna add some happy trees. And then I'm gonna combine all this. You'll see me using this kind of reverse cutting technique a lot. It's just habitual, where basically I'll have 2 shapes that are overlapping and then I will ask each shape to cut the other shape and then start deleting parts that I don't need so that I can have this kind of pill-shaped shape. And then I'll start duplicating this. And then I have this. And then just to be extra anal, I'm gonna distribute these along the z-axis. Which, I mean, did that change anything? I'm not sure it did. Huh. Well, I can do it the manual way anyway. So if I do this, and then I go like that, this is gonna be a weird little hack, but so basically what I'm trying to do here is have this middle shape be exactly the same distance between the top shape and the bottom shape. So if I draw these two lines, and then I go move, I can align this center point with this center point, and then I know that that math lines up. So now I have these three shapes, which are frankly a little big. I'm gonna scale these down a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, it's looking a little better. Kind of like that. Let me look at my reference again. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. I feel good about that. So what I'm gonna do is also make sure... Oops, I spelled move wrong. I'm gonna move this here so that I know it's exactly spaced between the top and the bottom of this cylinder. However, now I need to make sure it's aligned. So I'm gonna move this here. And then I'm going to rotate it, as we've been doing so far, because some of these pieces are on a 45-degree axis. It goes here. Let's see how it's looking in the 3D. Yeah, it's looking good. So I think what I'm gonna do is this vent, I'm actually gonna drill all the way through, which means I'm gonna wait to do that until I have done the like a vertical coring, and then I'm gonna basically drill sideways through into that side wall. So I'm gonna leave these here for a second, and then we're gonna come back to that. You can just make sure it's lined up right. Yeah, that feels good. That feels good. I'm actually glad I checked, because there are not a lot of pictures of this lightsaber. One of the fun things, well, it's a blessing and a curse, but because this show is 3D animated, these models exist somewhere. Somebody has them. Which means that unless the showrunners deliberately used multiple models for animation reasons, it looks the same in every shot. Unlike a lot of hand or 2D animation, a lot of times the stretching and the tweening and all the frame kind of warping can make the same object look different in different scenes, and you kind of have to average that data to reach a final product. In a 3D animated show, like, this lightsaber is identical in every scene that he uses it in. So I am kind of able to get this level of fair accuracy in a way that would be a little bit more challenging or more flexible with a 2D animation. You can see I even kind of modeled in this little ridge here. Little engraved recess. We'll see how it prints. It is relatively common that I'll print a copy of something and kind of go, and then tweak it and make a version 2. Which is just part of the prototyping process. If you ever commission 3D prints, the vast majority of what you're paying for is time more than material. So I am kind of spoiled in the fact that if I redo a print any number of times, the material cost is not that high. I'm just basically wasting my own time, or not even wasting, but I'm using my own time to do that. 3D printing is not that expensive in terms of material. It is mostly the machine, the labor, the time, looking after it. There's a lot of kind of just expertise you end up paying for if you work with somebody to do 3D printing for you. Okay, so I really have to kind of think about how I'm gonna divide this up for printing. There are a lot of considerations in terms of what your machine can do, size, orientation. If you think of an object like let's say like a simple table. So you have legs, right, and you have a top. The way that you would want to print that, if you were gonna print it, would actually be upside down, because then that wide flat surface can be the base, and then it'll do the legs up from there. You wouldn't want to do the legs first and then try to bridge that gap with a big wide flat section, because the liquid filament, assuming you're talking about FDM printing or the kind of normal filament printing you're probably familiar with, that liquid filament is just going to droop or melt down into that section center of the table. The hypothetical table. So overhangs, which is what that's called, are always kind of a major concern in 3D printing and something you want to think about. Because the more you can avoid an overhang, the better quality your prints are going to be. There is something called support material, which is additional pieces that the machine can print to help support overhangs or weird other sections that are designed to be removed or cut off or sanded off. But obviously that takes more material, more time. It creates a surface that's not as smooth, not as precise. So the more you can avoid support material or overhangs or that type of issue during this design process, the easier you're going to make your life better. The easier you're going to make your life better, Jesus Christ. The easier your future self... Words? The easier time your future self will have. That's a sentence. Alright. So I'm going to come back to this bottom section here. Start thinking about these screw threads. Hello, Purple Wren. How are you? Yes, the easier the print will be to finish. That's a good one. Words are hard. I can blame you. You distracted me. But that would be cruel of me because it's not true. Okay, so this part that I stole from a previous project, I designed it to be hollow. I don't need it to be exactly the same here though, because I wanted it to be a pass-through before, but I no longer need that. So I'm gonna just kind of delete some of this stuff. Get rid of that, get rid of that. Okay, there we go. That's a little better. So what I am gonna do, you're gonna see the cap command in action. Let's see if it works. Oh, alright, it worked. So basically, it generated a surface for me on both ends of this, so that now it's not a hollow part anymore, it's a solid part. Love to see it. So what I need from this bottom section is only the threading. I don't need this outside part. There we go. So that's going to be a little easier. Yeah. So right now this part was a single poly surface. So there's nothing in there, but it has no holes. So it would print as a solid part, basically. I'm going to change that, probably, but I'm making some adjustments here. So this pink part fits inside the blue threading. You can see that the blue threading is a little larger. So this part, which I would like to screw off ultimately. So let's see what I was planning. I did want the cylinder, the core, what I'm going to call the core, just for clarity. I did kind of want it to come down pretty far here. So we're going to see if it screws up my tolerances too much, but I am going to make these bigger. And I might have to do a test print on that, just to see. Because I know that the tolerance right now is exactly what I want it to be, but if I make it bigger, it might end up being too loose. Sometimes you just gotta fuck around and find out. So I'm gonna do a scale 2D. I'm gonna enlarge this a little bit. Then you can see here. Cosplay, prop making, modeling is always a combination of fucking around and finding out and then trying to be enormously precise. And the real key is knowing which one is which. Oop, I still move wrong a lot, clearly. Alright, so let's do that. So now the blue threading is flush with the surface of this, but I do want these to be pretty centered. So I want to make sure that it's not off-center. Let's see, blue. Okay, I think that's pretty good. This is something I'm kind of eyeballing a little bit just because neither of these threaded pieces are perfect circles. So there's not really an easy way for me to mathematically center it. So I'm kind of just eyeballing it. Make sure it all looks good. Move this just a little bit. Alright, I'm feeling pretty good about that. I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to change the color on this because I'm getting sick of looking at it. Green. By which I mean I need it to be differentiated from the blue core cylinder here. It looks like my pink threading is still smaller than that core, which is not ideal. So I'm actually going to make this bigger. See how that goes. So I'm very careful fucking around and finding out. Alright, I'm feeling a little better about that. It might be awfully close. But I think we can get away with it. I'll just run some print tests. We'll see how it goes, but let's try that. Might work out, might work out. It's pretty close. Actually, I'm gonna do that over again. I think that's a little closer than I'd like. Some of this kind of stuff you get a little bit of a sense for, just depending. Okay, I feel a little better about that. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Okay, so now I'm gonna take this actually down. And you'll be able to see in the 3D how this is gonna make sense. So now, if I move this down, you can see that there's threading on the inside of this. So that was the goal. It doesn't look centered because there's this whole rim edge, but it pretty much is. Or close enough that it should work alright. So I'm actually gonna do cap real quick, and then I'm gonna explode, take this top piece off. So now I generated that bottom that I needed in the bottom there. And hypothetically, ooh, you always hope when you do some shenanigans like that. So you can see up in the upper bar here, it says 21 surfaces joined into one open poly surface. What you want is a closed poly surface. So that means that somewhere there's a hole. And now we have to find it. Oh, I think I found the hole. It's a hole that I did. Okay, let's see if this helps. One closed poly surface. Oh, it's that. Okay, that was the hole. Living the dream. I was afraid it was going to be some little silly issue. Alright, so at some point I will test print this end cap. And we'll see. We'll see if it works. It might. Might not. I'm really pushing some boundaries with this particular lightsaber. Okay, I'm gonna kind of put this here. And then I'm gonna take the pink one, move it up. At one single naked edge. Yeah, Catbird. It's worse when it's one of those, like, when a Rhino just genuinely did some math wrong and they're like, you need to fix this, and you're like, I don't. This is your fault. Yeah, like one of those tiny little slivers where just like the math is just slightly wrong and you're like, kill me. Just kill me. I know, Popcats all around, man. Or little flaming Elmos every time. Okay, so I'm gonna group all of these. Okay, they wanted to take the cylinder too. Let's not. There we go. I'm gonna group these. So these are not attached to each other, but you can do a group command, kind of like you can in, let's say, the Adobe Suite or other design software. So this is going to allow me to move that around in a minute, which I think is going to be worth doing. Actually, you know what? I already backed this up into this other copy. Screw it. Delete. Bye. That's a lie. First, I'm going to do this and move this here. Now I'm going to delete this. Now we have the part we want. Hell yeah. Love to see it. I'm gonna attach this to this. Man, you guys, I'm excited for another emoji slide. I don't even know what I'm gonna do with it. I just want more options. I keep saying I'm kind of sad we don't have more emoji slots on Gut Punch. We're totally maxed out until we reach partner. But I really want a stick of butter. I really just want a stick of butter. So this has this kind of sleeve, partial sleeve situation here that's interacting with these chunks. Bands? Stripes? Bars? It's your choice. But I have to think about how I want to print it. Because let's see, if the threading is going to be up top, the whole thing is going to be hollow, this is going to come down here. Okay, I might have it break in the middle? I don't know. I think I might have to have it break here, actually. So this sort of middle, right above the center ring loop, and then this section here, I think between these two parts is where I'm gonna kind of cut the whole thing in half and then print the two sections. So I'm not gonna join those. However, this cylinder, I am gonna join with all of these. Oh, now it's all fuchsia. And I'm gonna join it with this. Actually, I don't really like this little triangle. I'm gonna undo that. Let's do ungroup. I'm gonna delete this. That's kind of a taste thing, but I just don't really like these little triangles peeking out. Okay, I think we're good otherwise. Alright, let's try that again. Let's select all of these. Oh, decided blue was the color of the day, huh? Sometimes when you join two different parts that are two different colors, it kind of just decides. It just decides. I'm gonna fuse that with this and this. Make those all one part. Make these one part. What did I add up here? I added something. Whoa. I think I asked it to use an additional shape? What did I do? Huh. I mean, not the end of the world. Oh. Okay, yeah. It did something a little hanky. Let me go back. See, this is why I try to iterate as I work, because, like, sometimes I won't notice a mistake that I made for a few steps. It happens. That's not a big deal. So this time I need to remember to unselect these two. There we go. So that should work exactly the way that I want it to. Perfect. Let me change that display color though. Back to gray. Yeah, so I'm gonna connect this, this central column. Honestly, I think I'm just gonna connect all the way up. This one, that one, this one. You know, I take that back. I am going to cut these other pieces, the center of these other pieces first. So let's basically... Nope, not that one. This one. So what I'm doing is I'm extruding this edge, and I'm kind of just, I'm using it as a cutting surface. So it will get deleted, probably. But I'm gonna do this, and then get rid of that, this, and then I'm gonna cut it using that surface I just made. Oh, split failed. What is this? What is this? Ah, there we go. There were two of them. Alright, that should work better. And then this one. So I'm gonna get rid of this blade just for a second so that I can actually see what I'm working on. So basically I'm drilling a hole through the middle of this part because I need there to be a hole through it. And then I'm gonna make some walls. Make sure that these are closed. Closed. And now I should be able to join this, this, and this. Aha. And then just to double check my work, I'm gonna move it off and look. Yep, it's a tube. What an incredible tube. Oh, you know what? That's not lined up right. Huh. Yeah. I wonder why. What did I do? How strange. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay, let me try that again. I'm sure it's user error, you know. I'm gonna go all the way back to extruding those curves. So I'm gonna try doing this a slightly different way. Basically, I'm gonna kind of undo my own work a little bit, but I think everything will be okay. Delete this, delete that. Sweet. Sweet. So I'm turning this back into a solid drum, basically. I'm gonna cap it, and then I will be able to join these three into a single piece. And now let me double check something real quick. Oh, yeah, I think we're alright. Oh, the blade is slightly off center. Oh, okay. That's probably part of the issue. I'm just gonna make sure that this is going in exactly the right direction here. I'm gonna do that. Alright, let's see if we succeeded. Oh, closed poly surface. Love to see it. Okay, now this is the part that I wanted to make. We're looking great. This is fantastic. However, I did one goof. I accidentally deleted my blade. So, I copied that to the clipboard. We're totally fine. We have successfully made the top part of the lightsaber. So you can see there's a little bit of a gap, even if I actually line this up the way it's supposed to be lined up. There's a little tiny bit of a gap between this sidewall and the blade. That is on purpose. Hypothetically, that means that the blade should be able to slide in without too much friction. It should be able to slide in pretty smoothly, but without rattling around. Just a nice, clean fit, you know? We love a good, clean fit in this house. Alright, we're making good progress. I'm gonna color this a different color real quick, just for my own sanity. There we go. So those two parts I'm gonna print separately. However, one thing I am gonna do is I'm gonna offset this. And then I'm going to cut it like so. Ah. There we go. So basically I'm doing that kind of reverse cutting thing that I do a lot here, so that I can make sort of a flat section on the side of the blade that'll allow me to place that switch a little more easily and a little more securely. Split failed. There we go. Alright, so that's what I wanted. So basically there will be a recess when I print this, and it'll help me line everything up a little better once the end comes. Also, don't forget to save your work, folks. And drink water, you know, do like adult things. Because nobody wants to be dehydrated and lose their work. I promise I am also drinking water. Alright, let's attach this screw section to the bottom. So what I'm going to do is line it up with the other threads again. Or at least, you know, pretty close. I kind of put that there. Do that. Okay, so now that that's pretty much lined up where I want it to be, I am going to move, well, not move, hide that. And then I'm gonna cut this. As you guys remember, I got rid of a hollow opening in the center of these threads before. However, I need it back, but a different size. Let me cut this. Alright, this threading might end up being really thin. We shall see. I'm gonna try to get rid of this lip here a little bit. I don't need it. So I'm actually gonna explode this. Get rid of that. Actually, I have to think about how I really want to do this in terms of efficiency. I'll put this down here. Yeah. Okay, I think what I'm gonna do here... Let me see what we're working with as far as edges. Okay. Cannot explode a single surface. Oh shit, I rendered this as a single surface? Good for me. So basically I'm just trying to find the way that I would like to kind of get rid of this weird little overhang here. Okay. It's a good thing I enjoy a puzzle. Because sometimes that's exactly what 3D modeling is. They're basically just, let me back up a little bit. So in Rhino, there are curves, which are just lines. They don't print, it's not an object, but they can be really useful in terms of creating surfaces. And surfaces are what make up objects, basically. So like 1D space, you draw a line, and then 2D square, and then 3D cube. So what we're trying to make is basically, obviously, 3D modeling, but you can use 1 and 2D elements to build your 3D model. So the lines are basically the 1D, if you will, and then you can use it to make everything else. So what I'm gonna do is I kind of just created some lines that represent the edges of some of these surfaces, and it's gonna be a little easier for me to create new surfaces between those lines by connecting them. Like so. So it's a little messy right now, but I should be able to use that to well, it seemed smart at the beginning. Maybe I don't care. Maybe it's fine. Sometimes it's fine. I definitely, with this threading, I keep saying I'm gonna do a test print, and I'm gonna do a test print. I'm gonna see if this really skinny overhang here is a problem. Because if it is, I'll shave it down. If it's not, it's fine then. Who cares? I do sometimes have a tendency to like get really obsessed with really close-up precision that, quite frankly, once it's all printed and painted and assembled, it just doesn't matter. And if I'm enjoying it, I'm enjoying it, but to a point, sometimes I'm like, you know what? That's fine. When I was a youth, there was a plumber that a family friend as well, but he was a plumber. And he always used to say, it's not good, it's good enough. Which, like, of course is not something you want to hear from a plumber. But what he really meant was, sometimes it is okay for things to be good enough. When I was a young warthog. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing with this that I did with the switch down here. I'm just kind of creating a little flat surface. Oh, that didn't create a full loop, huh? That's kind of a pain, actually. Let's try that again. Man, I haven't watched Lion King in a long time. I should. That's a good movie. I really liked Lion King when I was a kid. That was a good one. I did not own any of the sequels. I wonder why this isn't cutting right. I think I might have watched the Lion King sequels at some point, like maybe a million years ago. I don't know, man. Good for the furries. Good for them. Well, maybe this part is just going to be ill-behaved today. You know. Well-behaved parts rarely make history, as they say. You're back with a popsicle. That's extremely good. You remember how I was talking about maybe just putting this little switch on like a pin or something? I'm starting to think that feels like a really good idea. I might even kind of do that by hand. I might just use a drill out the back of this and put in like a tack or a nail or something and just kind of fill it with epoxy. I know I've talked a big game about pre-planning everything, making sure it all fits. There are times where you kind of just are better off doing things by hand. Ooh, raspberry popsicle. Sounds good as hell. Alright, well let's at least get this completely drilled out, if you will, hollowed out, whatever you want to call it. So I'm trying to find the center point here. I mean, I guess I could take that. That's fine. So I'm just making this extra long so that I can take something like this. Cut. So sometimes when you have so many parts like this, I actually will just kind of make a copy, move it to the side, and do what I need to do. It's just faster. So I'm gonna do that. Okay, so hypothetically, close part? Yes. Hello, heavy yawns. Alright, so I'm gonna basically move this back to its original location here. cut. Get rid of this. Replace it with a better one. Alright. We're getting there, folks. We are getting there. It's starting to be summertime, huh? You should have seen our faces when the ice cream truck showed up for the first time this year. We heard its siren call and we were like, oh, who has cash? Oh, thank you, Heavy Yawns. I appreciate that. Good luck getting your train. Oh, you do like late shift, right? It's been a hot second since I had to take a New York subway, which I suppose is a blessing and a curse. It's the crew in the chat. What's up, crew? What's up, Vicious Frockery? Hello. Ice cream place around the corner. There's ice cream over there, Sam Harvey? I didn't know that. I'm too busy eating silver rice all the time. Okay, so there's a bunch of joined parts here. I think I am gonna go ahead and join this one with this one with this one. Yeah. Alright, join, join, join. I'm at the stage where I'm getting so close to the finish that I keep double checking my work just to make sure. Ooh, okay, so there's something in there I didn't want. See, it's a good thing I did it. So this centerpiece here, this one, needs to have a hole cut in it, which is very doable. Yeah, so I'm gonna do my classic, my special, and move things out of the way. Just a little Xena chakram. It's called a chakram, right? Is that right? It's been a hot second since I watched Xena. Take this, put it back. Alright, so this time, this should do what I want it to do. However, I'm still gonna check my work. Which is basically, by which I mean, is there an adequate hole cut through the center? It looks like, there is not. So... what am I missing? Oh, it looks like there were 2 copies here. That's weird. Okay, so this one looks good. Need to get rid of that. Rid of that. Oh, I see. I never actually cut, a hole through this piece. Oh. That would help. Alright, let's do that. Here we go. So what I am going to do, take all of this. There we go. And then I'm going to take this also. Alright, now I can see what I'm doing. Which is to go from here to here. Closed surface? We love to see a closed surface, man. It is a needle in a layer stack. That is a wonderful, wonderful way of putting it. Got so many moving parts here. However, I think objects do not intersect. Fantastic. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? There it is. We love to see it. Look at that good core. Right? Right? Wait. Oh, you know what? Actually, no, that's exactly what it's supposed to look like. This is totally fine. Because the blade is narrower than this core section. So this bottom area being wider is as designed. Okay, so we're doing pretty well. We have this upper section. So now, you remember how I said we were going to come back to this vent on the backside? Guess what? It's time. So one thing I am going to do real quick, just to make my life a little bit easier. Oh, actually, I don't need to do that. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to take these. I'm going to hit the extrude curve command. So you can see I've got this. All I gotta do that. So I make them too big, and then I trim off the sections that I don't need. So now I have these three. Sometimes when there's, basically when I know there's like scrap stuck on the inside here, I'll do something a little hacky, which is basically take the parts I do want, put them on the clipboard, undo my last few actions, and then just paste the pieces that I actually want. Because then I don't have to do all that cleanup. And voila! Seeing that blue in there is good. That means that we did our jobs correctly. Still a closed polysurface. The words closed polysurface are, to anybody who works in Rhino, one of the best phrases on Earth. Truly. So have another popsicle, man. It's Wednesday. You're halfway through the week. Yeah, see, you're 2 days away from Flat Fuck Friday. You gotta get started early. As always, if you guys are not familiar with Flat Fuck Friday, because that's a thing that I say a lot, I would recommend, highly recommend, looking up a Twitter account called Gators Daily, which, yes, is about all types of crocodiles and alligators. However, it is so much more. Words cannot describe Gators Daily. Crocs and Gators. But they also, like, tweet about how we should abolish the police and have giant, like, pride flags that say fuck around and find out. But truly, it's just a gift to us all. You know, if you need some leftist gator memes in your life. I will always preach about Gators Daily. They deserve it. That and Muppet History, also a gem. A little less shitposty, a little more genuine, but also a wonderful account. I'm gonna have to think about this a little bit, because I kind of am starting to feel like I might print just this sort of center section with all of this detail on my resin printer just to get a higher fidelity. And if I'm gonna do that, I should separate it out from some of this other stuff. See, this is what I'm telling you. Like, Gators Daily, it's got your back from the moment you show up. And every Friday they post a video that is a little song about the widest and the flattest of gators. And I do say flat with an L. He's very flat. He's a magnificent creature. So another thing I can do that is very nice, I can go sell color, which means select color, and get everything that's pink, for example. Which works out great when I have like a couple dozen surfaces that I need to join. So I'm gonna unselect those other parts and then join. So let's see. I'm actually gonna do that. Do this. I gotta say, I think I started using Rhino when it was maybe Rhino 2 or Rhino 3 many years ago. Rhino has come a long way. I've always liked it, it's a great program, but some of the stuff like the booleans, like some of the text tools, just some of the math and the accuracy used to be really buggy. Just really buggy. So yeah, it's nice to watch. It's nice to see. I mean, you know, I started using Photoshop when it was CS2, which I think was one of the most bloated of the Adobes, or at least the Photoshops. Come a long way, folks. They sure have, Catbird. They have fixed a lot of stability issues. Oh boy. Trying to render type in the, like, old Rhino? Don't even try. Don't even bother. Okay, let's see if I can get away with the shenanigans that I'm pulling right now. I love a shenanigan. Oh, yeah, seemed like it worked, actually. I'm not mad about it. Okay, moment of truth. Oh, it didn't give me the data. Come on, give me the data. Closed poly surface. There's a part of you that misses when you just like randomly crashed Rhino. That's a mood. Or the like obsessive saving before you try to ask it to do a big task. You're like, uh-oh, I'm about to ask something pretty spicy. Better save my document 8 times. Okay, so I think I have completely joined, added, modified, offset, done everything I need to do. I probably will do all those test run prints, and I'm sure I'll come back and edit some stuff. But for now, I actually think I nailed it. Everything I wanted to do, anyway. However, I am going to kind of pull this over here and explode it, just so I can take a look at all the parts one last time. I'm gonna do that. Do that. Alright, so we have a threaded bottom. So hypothetically, I will be able to screw off the end of the lightsaber and put all the electronics in there. And then there is a sort of end stop in here, this rim, that will stop the electronics from sliding at the other end, basically. And also allow the blade to come all the way down and rest right on top of the lens for the LED. I will probably, after I have printed and solidified the model, I will drill a really, really small hole somewhere in this neck and sink in a really, really small screw, a retention screw basically, that will hold the blade in place, but also allow the blade to still be removable. That tends to be how a lot of other lightsabers are built right now. Unless you have, like, NeoPixel blades, that's kind of a whole other thing. But even not always. Sometimes the NeoPixels use the retention screws too. But for now, I think we did it, y'all. Fuck yeah. I'm gonna line these up a little bit, clean up my files. But yeah, I think we're looking good. This was the backup. Alright, I don't need these to be exploded. That's fine. So I'm gonna do a little bit of exporting here. Just save all my STLs. So let me double check. It looks like you guys cannot see my export window. I might be able to change that, actually. Well, it's not essential. So basically, Rhino has a native file format in the same way that a Photoshop document has a native format, or most other programs have a native working format. So Rhino have a native, Rhino format, but you can't really put the Rhino format into a 3D printer software. So you have to export it as an export format, so the equivalent would be like exporting as a JPEG, or exporting as a PNG, or exporting as a PDF, which are not working files, they're export files. But that's the type of file, in this case an STL, that 3D printing slicer software is going to be able to read and to handle for 3D printing. So I'm gonna export each of these parts that I've made as a separate STL, and then I will be able to run them through my printer software in the future. So let me make a new folder. I'm in the Ezra Bridger folder. So let's call this... I'm pretty basic about my naming schemes. I'm like Lightsaber top, And then let's choose STL. I save it as a binary STL. There's no reason to use ASCII. It just makes the file bigger. In this case. There probably is a purpose to it, but it doesn't matter in this case. So, alright, export Lightsaber mid. Binary. Export Lightsaber bottom. Very creative naming, I know. Very creative naming scheme. Save. Export. Lightsaber. Switch. Shocking naming conventions. And then let's go export. Or I can spell export wrong. Export. Lightsaber. Toggle? And then I'm gonna save the master file. So yeah, we finished the Ezra lightsaber, guys. How you feeling? Oh, you found Flatfuck Friday? Hell yeah. Hi, Ergonaut. I have used Fusion 360 quite a while ago. I don't use it actively right now, but I am familiar with it. Also, hi. Catbird, you upped your autosave rate? Yeah, that's mood. I haven't had knock on all available surfaces. Rhino 6 doesn't crash on me that much, which is probably also due to the fact that I have relatively good hardware, but it works out. How you guys doing? Oh, I see Jason subscribed. Thank you, Jason. I'm catching up on the chat, you know? Let's see, how are we feeling? Let me check what other projects I have active right now. Because I think we're done with this lightsaber for the time being. I might come back, but we'll see. Let me look at what else I'm working on, though. To answer your question, Ergonaut, so back when I was sort of picking what software I wanted to use, I did try out a few things like ZBrush. Obviously are a little bit more for sculpting organic kind of structures or figures, animals, people, that kind of stuff. Maya is kind of somewhere in the middle. They do some sculpting quite well, and they're quite good with rigging as well for 3D models. Rhino, I would say, is probably one of the stronger pieces of software for modeling that is engineering adjacent. So things that like need to be extraordinarily precise and that are based on flat or curved surfaces, planes. You don't really sculpt in Rhino. It's really not a piece of software that is designed for creating organic models or organic shapes. But if what you're doing, especially if you're doing a lot of prop work or if you're doing a lot of kind of mechanical engineering work, Rhino is super math-based. It's a NURBS-based program. And a thing that I actually really like is you'll notice in this upper left-hand part of the screen here, there's a command prompt. So most of what I do actually is not using buttons and menus. I literally do type in things like move or rotate. And then I can start typing in numbers or start typing in adjustments into that command prompt and kind of do a huge bulk of my interaction with the program, literally just through the prompt. Most of those options do exist in the menus. You can totally use this program the way that you do a lot of other software. There's no reason that you can't. But the command prompt works really well for my workflow in particular. I just kind of enjoy it. This program also kind of, if you're familiar with Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, there's a lot of similarity in terms of the function of lines and shapes and the way that you can use one shape to cut another shape, that kind of stuff. Admittedly, it has been a hot second since I used Fusion 360, so I don't know how similar that is these days. It might be, quite genuinely. But I hope that helps a little bit, gives you a better idea. I will say Rhino, I believe, still offers a 7-day or 14-day trial. So if you ever wanted to give it a shot, I think you can totally do that for free and just see if it works for you. Yeah, it is quite similar to Autodesk. Yeah, so if you've used SolidWorks, then if you liked SolidWorks, you will probably like Rhino. The logic is a little different. Like, if you learn SolidWorks, then you will have to relearn some of the program logic for Rhino. But yeah, it's Catbirdie also. There's no parametrics. Yeah, I agree with that. Rhino, it is difficult to adjust existing models. So part of the reason that you guys were seeing me work so iteratively and kind of save old shapes is because if I only had a finished model and I was like, oh dang, I really wish that like this particular section was a different size, I kind of to an extent would have to start over. Or at least that part I'd have to kind of start over. That's not always true, but it is a little harder to adjust stuff. It's basically a workflow thing where you just kind of have to be thinking ahead and be like, oh, if I need to adjust this down the line, I'm gonna retain some copies and some backups just in case. I do agree with that though. It is difficult to adjust Rhino models. And I will say Rhino's mesh editing is not great. Whenever I'm editing exported meshes, I don't use Rhino. I use a different piece of software for that. I use NetFab, actually. NetFab is fantastic for editing meshes. But yeah, Catbird, who's in the chat, is also a fantastic 3D modeler. And has been making some really, like, sweet spears and staffs and stuff lately, man. Oh, I need to try Creo. I know we're getting spicy on our takes. No, it's not spicy. This is not spicy. I'm looking at what projects I have active. I can work on Persephone a little bit. I think I teased that earlier. Let me pull that up. I'm gonna preface this. The outfit of Persephone's that I'm working on from the Hades game is, I would say, constitutes a spoiler for the end of the game, so it's not really a big one. But if you haven't finished the game and you are concerned about, like, literally a single image of an outfit being kind of a spoiler, I am gonna warn you guys about that now. But the game's been out for a little while. Basically, it's just Persephone has an alternate outfit that's cool. Let me open. There we go. Oh, where's my... Oh, you know what? I forgot I was working inside my, a different document. I was working inside my Nyx document. There it is. Have a good night, Gaygoth Gaming. Thank you for dropping by, as always. Oh, it forgot my background image. Ah, you're killing me, man. I recently transferred a bunch of my files from one computer to another, so it's understandable. I can fix this, though. I believe it was this image. Was that? Yeah, it was that one. Okay, fixed. So I... sort of a funny story. I started working on Nyx files, and there's another group of absolutely fantastically talented 3D modeler folks, the Dangerous Ladies, who released a set of Nyx files that are honestly great. They're great. So I kind of changed gears because I was like, I don't feel like I need to compete in the same space. They've already done such a great job. And so I decided to allocate my time to working on Persephone instead, because I had a request from someone to make this particular set. So another thing I have in here is I have just sort of a general human head model that a lot of times I'll pop into a document to kind of get a size for jewelry, headpieces, headdresses, that kind of stuff. So I did get, honestly, pretty far on Nyx. I might finish it eventually. We'll see. As with all creative work, sometimes you end up just kind of moving on from something. That's not a big deal. Okay, there's something hinky going on with her. Stop it. There we go. That's better. Lock that. Alright. But actually, these two lovely ladies have a lot of very similar jewelry pieces, so the reason I'm in the same document is so that I can kind of pull shapes, do a little bit of crossover, you know? Yeah, I feel that, Ergonaut. Unfortunately, I do feel like 3D modeling is pretty cost prohibitive for a lot of, I think for a lot of students, for a lot of people who would like to learn the software and learn the skills. There is kind of a high threshold of entry. And I find that to be kind of unfortunate. Because, like, I think lots of people should be able to learn skills, you know? I mean, you know, obviously these companies have to make a living. But some software is not cheap. I haven't looked at the price structures for Maya in a while, but I'm guessing it's still true that Maya is like in the thousands? Or has it gone down since, I think, who bought them? AutoCAD? You can correct me on that if you remember who bought them. I don't remember, but... Yeah, Maya is... I have, I used Maya for like a 30-day free trial because there was a file format that I needed to open a while back, FBX, that only Maya can really work with. A few other programs can kind of open FBXs, but not the way that I needed. So I downloaded a 30-day trial just to handle the FBX model, and whew, super different workflow than what I'm used to. Good program, just different workflow. Ooh, is SolidWorks 1200 now? Oh. So you guys remember earlier that I was talking about kind of the difference between modeling off of animated or hand-drawn reference versus modeling off of 3D modeled reference. Is certainly with the Hades art, absolutely beautiful style, but there is an element of kind of figuring out what the artist intended in terms of shape and how that needs to translate into being a physical object. Especially a worn physical object, because, I mean, you know, for example, you look at Nyx's earrings, they're not connected. There's no post, there's no chain, not between the gems, not between the centerpiece, not between the earlobe. So you kind of have to make that up. You just have to figure out how it works. So, you know, I added kind of, via my own taste, these connections between all these floating pieces. And different people solve that problem in different ways. That just happened to be the way that I thought looked tasteful. And the same thing is true here for Persephone. You can see that there's no connection between any of this. Personally, I would probably use like that really thin, it's like fishing line, but it's a little thinner and it's intended for beading purposes, but you can buy sort of a very thin, clear plastic thread and use that to thread these earrings in a way that they would still be very dangly and have that movement and that flow, but kind of look like they were floating. Oh, that's pretty cool, Ergonaut. That actually explains why so many folks are Fusion 360 users. I didn't know that. Huh. Yeah, well, you heard it here, folks. Fusion 360, I believe, is probably free for personal use or with limitations. So if you want to get into 3D modeling, it's a good option. I've definitely noticed a lot lately that, I mean, this has always been true, but it's, as always, noticeable that some companies are very much designing their product for other companies, and some companies are more conscious of an individual user or a freelance user. I noticed this certainly because Hootsuite, who is a scheduling app and data aggregator, among other things, used to offer like a very robust free plan. And they recently just kind of completely decimated their free plan. It still exists, but in a very minimal sense. And the lowest paid tier is anywhere from $50 to $75 a month. So, you know, I was like, oh, so they don't have any interest in having individual or sort of one-on-one relationships with users who are freelancers or who are self-promoting or who are only running one account or two accounts. It was very clear that they only care about making their product for companies, which is their choice, of course, but it was kind of unfortunate to see because I actually really liked Hootsuite. I was having a good experience with them. And I feel that way sometimes kind of about 3D modeling software too, is I think for many years it was not common for individual or freelance users to use it. And so Maya could, you know, say, oh, well, somebody huge, some animation studio is going to be using our software. Like, yeah, they can afford to pay us $2,000, $3,000. But with the rise of 3D printing and 3D modeling as a skill set that a lot of people either want or have, it is kind of a shame to me that the barrier of entry is so high still. Because, like, I'm not saying Photoshop is cheap, but it's not the same as $1,200 a year for SolidWorks. I mean, that's a pretty big jump. Oops, I have to do a mirror. I hope they do, Catbird. I really hope they do. Oh, that's interesting, Ergonaut. It has to be a public file. Huh. Okay. I have seen Fusion 360 come up a lot in builder groups that I'm in. So thanks for the info, actually. I had not looked into it in the last few years. So this actually connects a lot of dots. I agree with you, Catbird. Rhino is actually surprisingly, I don't want to call it cheap, but it is more affordable than many of the other options that are on the market. Good old McNeil. So, you guys are seeing me work on this, but you can see what I mean, that kind of a lot of these shapes are really inconsistent. And the art is beautiful. I mean, I love the style of it, but in terms of doing this kind of precision modeling that I'm doing, I do have to sort of guess and be like, are all of these beads supposed to be different shapes? Are they supposed to be the same shape? What's gonna look better? You know, whether or not the intent of the artist was one way or another, like what is going to make a more beautiful finished product? Especially in terms of jewelry design. You know, do these three pieces here overlap? How thick are they? How bulky are they? What actually is that shape? So this ends up being kind of a lot more decision making than the modeling that I was doing a little while ago, which is very just sort of trying to do replica work. This ends up being a little bit more based on taste, based on sense, common sense, a little bit of knowledge about how jewelry generally is made, and the ways you're gonna end up printing it and finishing it, and what's gonna feel good to you. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I actually wish that more software had both options, of subscription and upfront. I also don't mind companies that give you a discount if you pay everything upfront. Because for some folks that's gonna make sense, and for some folks it's not. So what I'm kind of doing right now is akin to, I'll call it sketching. Again, so these lines, these don't print. It's not a 3D object, but you can use them to build 3D objects. So I'm sort of sketching out the shape of these sort of oblong beads here. My intent with this piece is I would probably recommend to somebody who is making this project, I'm not going to be making this project for myself, but that the gold and the black collar be maybe a stretch or some kind of soft material, and then this section here with all the gemstones and all the beads would just be a necklace that sat over that collar. I don't think that these two pieces need to be joined necessarily, or that this upper section needs to be a hard part. I think you'll also be a lot more comfortable if it's not a hard part. So I also really want this to be symmetrical. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. You and your fitted metal turtleneck. You know, living the dream. Listen, some of the oldest jewelry in the world was big metal, like neck spacers or big metal collars. Humans have been putting big chunks of metal on their necks for approximately as long as they've been humans. One thing I think about a lot as well, if I am modeling with the intent to sell or to give it away, is flexibility in terms of different people's body shapes, in terms of different user cases. I have some models that I actually have, people have asked me to sell them, and I've actually declined because I know that they're fitted to my body in a way that they wouldn't be for someone else. And that they probably wouldn't, that they would have a difficult time fitting that piece. A really good example is my Iron Man gloves, because every single joint on the hand is all fitted to my fingers. Like the length, the circumference, the whole thing, it is exactly fitted to my hand. That glove only just slides on. And so, you know, as much as I would love to share it with someone else, it's not gonna fit, or at least it's very unlikely. So if I were to release this model as a single collar piece, there's a decent chance that it wouldn't fit everybody's neck. And that some customers could struggle with it being too big, too small, too this, too that. So I think that a flexible necklace is also going to work better, not only in terms of comfort, but in terms of flexibility for different customers. Are these closed? Ugh. Oi, why is this misbehaving? The eternal Rhino problem. Why is this misbehaving? Split failed! I'm gonna scream. I'm just gonna explode these. Sometimes. Alright, that's gonna be a little bit better. There we go. Okay, so now I'm just gonna clean up my work a little bit. I know it seems like I'm spending a long time on this little rhombus. I promise it's worth it. Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah. You know, I think a lot of cosplayers do get kind of frustrated because of exactly what you're saying, that movie, let's say superhero outfits, any kind of prop is truly made for that person. In every conceivable way, it's made for that person. Of course it fits well. You know, like, of course it looks really good on their body. Superhero suits are a fantastic example. It just, like, it's so difficult to either get lucky or customize off the rack, or sometimes even commissioned work. It can be so difficult to give somebody a set of measurements and for them to be able to make that for you without you being there. I don't really take a lot of sewing commissions because even though I am very comfortable, let's say, tailoring a suit jacket, I do so for my own body. I mean, I can try it on and go, oh, this looks wrong. I can't do that for a client who lives across the country. And I don't want to make somebody a piece that doesn't fit them. I have huge respect for people who do commissioned sewing work. Vicious Frockery, who's in the chat, does beautiful commission work for people. Yeah, grading, man. Sometimes I think about taking a class about pattern making, more or less. Especially basically for that, for grading patterns. Yeah, basically just making sewing annotation and that kind of stuff, because it's like, I can do that for myself. I have a whole folder full of patterns that I've made, but it's very different making one and making one that has different sizes and knowing, you know, what kind of the standard in the industry is, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough to do commission work. At least a lot of props, sometimes they need to fit you, very much so, but often they don't. Or at least you can be a little bit more flexible in terms of scale and fit without it looking wonky. I am quite meticulous. I've done absolutely ludicrous things, like imported entire game models of characters and then scaled them to my height and then exported all of their props so that those props were exactly the same proportion to my body as they are to the protagonist's body. But I'm a perfectionist. What am I doing? I'm like doing a crappy job filleting here. You know what? I don't want to fillet right now. Fillet a fish. No, what I'm gonna do... do this. But Tony, that's not a bad call. I do stuff like that all the time for 3D modeling, actually. Like, I'll take a photo of my hand, or I'll take a photo of objects on a cutting mat that has a ruler grid, and then I'm able to scale models to whatever it is I need to scale them to. I have also absolutely taken photos of, like, action figures and that kind of stuff, and then scaled them to a real size, and then kind of used it as a reference, as a scale reference. So this is another instance in which, because there are a lot of repeated beads, I only actually need to make one, but I kind of want to see what it looks like when there are a bunch of them next to each other, just to sort of gauge the final product. So I'm putting a center line in here, just so I can kind of make sure that I keep everything symmetrical. Alright, so I wanted that to be a little bit narrower, just a touch. So what I'm gonna do is extrude curve. So my windows are a little different here. Okay, how thick do I want this to be? So actually I do keep a ruler on my desk, because sometimes I want to think about like thicknesses, distances, sizes, that kind of thing. So what I'm looking at here, I do model in inches, just because I'm American. Most 3D printing software prefers millimeters, but it's pretty easy to convert. So I model in inches just because it's a little easier for me to visualize. But sometimes I'll do millimeters. It kind of depends. I think in this case, I might go for like 1/4 inch. It's kind of thick. Let's go for 3/8. Yeah, it feels good. That feels good. I can always adjust this, but better to try to get it on the first try, right? Oh, calipers, that's smart. I have digital calipers back in my shop, but that doesn't really do me a lot of good. Is that surface? Oh, no. There we go. No. So basically, what I'm trying to do right now is there's a command in Rhino called fillet, where basically you can take a hard edge like this and turn it into a soft edge. But the fillet can be a little bit of trial and error, although I don't hate that. So it just sort of, sometimes I end up trying it a few times, see how I feel about it. Oh, that's kind of nice. That's not bad. And then you can just kind of go through, select all your edges. I'm sure there's a faster way to do this, but sometimes you just get stuck in your habits. I am gonna leave, I was gonna say I was gonna leave a hard back on this, but I actually don't think I am. Show me the edge. Show me the edge! There we go. I think I got all the edges. Alright, I think that's everything. Let's see how it goes. Whoop. Oh, I got a little cranky in that corner, huh? Yeah, that's gonna be a pass. Oh. Oh, you know what? I think I missed an edge. I think I did. Let's try it again. Sometimes trying to do really, really small parts like this is a little bit fussy. There we go. Okay, that was user error. So now you can see it has these, like, nice soft edges. I actually, though, am feeling like I kind of want the top to be narrower in terms of depth as well. I might do that. I might do that. That's quite doable, actually. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm actually gonna make 2 squares. One of which is gonna go well, I want a perfect square. Please. Please, Rhino. I'm begging. I'm begging you. There we go. I'm gonna delete this. And then I'm gonna make another perfect square here. And then I'm gonna make sure that these are aligned. Get rid of this. Alright, so now... Oh, well. I would like this to be a parent intersection. Oh, come on. So cranky. So cranky. Alright, let me get this back up where it belongs. There we go. That's much better. No. So there are a bunch of Rhino settings that sort of affect the snapping, which is actually really nice that you can customize your snaps. It's actually a lot less frustrating. Alright, so I'm basically making an extraordinarily tall pyramid here. Ta-da! Gonna use the good old cap command, and now we have one closed poly surface. Let's try that fillet again. Get that nice bevel. Alright, looks like that's everybody. Alright, now we have a nice little beveled pyramid. Very nice. Very tasteful. I'm gonna wait to punch a lot of the beading holes or the thread holes until I have all of the necklace pieces done, just so that I can kind of line them all up together. Oh, that makes sense, Capbird. I actually follow your professor, and they do really, really good work. I remember you recommended them to me. It's funny, a very, very old family friend of my dad's has been he sort of got into the 3D modeling jewelry game like really early, way before a lot of other people were doing it. And I remember even being a kid, and he had one of those really big 3D pen arms. So it's basically, it's kind of like a tablet pen like this, but it's on like a big gimbal arm. And it has resistance built into it, so if you're sculpting like clay or digital clay, depending on the settings that you set for the sculpting material, the arm resists you more or less, or feels like an actual physical material. Really, 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 really cool. And he had 3D printers before a lot of people had them. Yeah, he still does that kind of work. He's a great guy. He's like on retainer with a couple of really big jewelry companies. And so it's so funny that like I sort of ended up in this space that he's in sort of by accident. Yeah, he's a good guy. Okay, so I don't actually need 3 of these, but I am going to duplicate it for fun. So that I can kind of see the way that a lot of these pieces are working together. This outfit of hers is very geometric, which I actually really like in terms of the narrative beat that it relates to. So for this Hades symbol in the middle here, I actually have already modeled a different item that has that logo on it. So I'm actually going to open that document and just kind of steal my own work here. Because there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. So yeah, so Streamlabs is only focused on that other Rhino window, but like, don't worry about it. Basically, I'll paste it in, you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So I made, for a friend of mine, where did those just paste? They're there. So basically what I made is, there's a character in Hades who has a number of gold coins around his neck. And rather than 3D printing every single coin, because then you would have to sand every single coin, I made a stamp, or sort of a press mold, actually, so that she could make the coins by hand, and they would actually look more like old Greco-Roman stamped coins, because that's how they were made, obviously. Yeah, right? Fucking you need to strut shows right up. Summoned out of the ether. Actually, I think I have your print here somewhere. I have my forbidden box of prints here. They're not forbidden, they're all just Hades prints. Yeah, so that's what this looks like. Let me see if that makes... There we go. So this is 2 pieces. So the intent is basically to put clay or warbler or some other material in this ring and then push it down with this stamp and you'll end up with kind of a pressed coin. But yeah, they're forbidden cookies. They actually use this exact same technique for a lot of cookie cutters. So, fun fact. There's actually a huge community of bakers who own those really small 3D printers, like the super bitty ones, and all they do is print cookie cutters. That's it. It's a whole thing. And yeah, Capper, those sculpting arms, like, especially at the time, what? Nobody had heard of that. That was crazy town. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna steal this logo that I made because I still have the curves. Here we go. And I should be able to just sort of... So first I need to rotate it. Here we go. And bring it down. Oh, I rotated it upside down. Sometimes. There we go. So hers is a slightly different shape. It's a little pointier, but we have such a good starting point here. I'm not too worried about it. Hers is also at an angle. Obviously in the art it's in perspective. So I'm gonna try to the best of my knowledge, make it the shape that it should be if it were straight on. Let's see, it's probably a little taller. Yeah, hers is a little sharper around the edges. Whoa, what happened to that? Did it creep behind the art? Yes, it did. Let's move this here. That line color is also hard as shit to see. Let's do this. There we go. Yeah, you can make any cookie you want. Emily Ann and I made some pretty wicked sugar cookies this year for Christmas, I guess. Alright, so one of the things that's definitely going to be important to me here is keeping this reasonably symmetrical. So as I adjust, I'm going to want to be thinking about that. There we go. Okay, so I want it to be a little bit sharper. But I also actually kind of want this to be more of a straight line. Yeah, that's feeling good. I do kind of want these corners to actually be a little less curved. So like we were talking about earlier, it's to some extent in Rhino, it's a little bit difficult to undo work that you've done. So I am gonna kind of have to do something a little silly to sharpen up these corners. Like there's no way to kind of just undo that corner fillet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw a straight line from here to here. I'm gonna select that line. I'm gonna scale that line from here to here. I'm gonna take it out here. Sometimes I might be able to do this actually more easily. Sometimes, oh, yep, it'll do a tangent, so I didn't have to do that. So basically, I'm actually rebuilding these corners, unfortunately. And then I'll be able to adjust the sharpness. Alright, so obviously, you know, too sharp. But it's easier to blunt something than it is to make it sharper, as we know from the real world. So I think what I'm actually going to do is just completely rebuild this lower section. Because sometimes it just makes more sense to do that. I'm gonna get rid of that. Take this up here. I'm gonna take this. Okay, so this one's a little hanky. I don't really want to use that tangent, actually. I'm gonna do this and kind of make it up. Yeah, it's alright. It's fine. There's a softness to the Hades art that I don't necessarily need to get too crazy here. So I'll do that. Sorry, there's some kind of bug. Bigs. Bigs. It's getting to be summer. Or spring, I suppose. But... I think I'm gonna move these just a little bit. There we go. So I'm just sort of tweaking some of this right now. So I'm going to explode this. There we go. And then I basically so I copied the part that I actually wanted to keep onto the clipboard and then just deleted everything else. So now I'm gonna cut off this bottom section that I don't want. So you can see how I kind of did have to rebuild the lower section here to change how strong those corners were, which, like, it isn't the end of the world. Little inconvenient. Oh well. Now I can pretty much just join everything. Join hands. However, I'm only going to join this lower bit. Oh, hey. That's cranky. Here we go. Hey, line up. There we go. Because, so if I were to join this whole outline that I've created, and then do the corner filleting, it would also do this corner, which I actually would like to stay crisp, and it would do this point up top, which I would also like to stay crisp. So by keeping these as two separate lines, that actually solves my problem. Until later. So this happens sometimes when I think I'm working on a flat plane, and then I look at the top view, and I wasn't working on a flat plane. Oops. I'm just gonna fix that real quick. There we go. Kind of like having a puppy, you know, like you gotta keep an eye on it just in case it starts doing something terrible. I'm just doing some little adjustments. Sort of tweaking things here or there. Put this up here. Yeah, I feel good about that. Alright, let's do a little filleting. Fillet a fish. Fillet corners. Go here. That feels pretty good. I have just realized, however, I actually want these two corners to also stay crisp. So I am actually going to explode this real quick and turn this into two separate lines, because that should solve my problem. Okay. One more time with spirit. are we feeling? That's kind of nice. It's kind of nice. I might go a little bit more. Let's go 0.075. See how that feels. It's not bad. I kind of like that. That's not bad. Alright, let's do the inner one. Yeah, that feels good. Feels really good. So basically, I have made these outlines, and I'm going to be able to use these outlines to build a three-dimensional shape. It's kind of like putting up the studs of a house before you put the walls on. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, hers is a little bit wider because it has this green sprig in the middle, which is, I actually really, really like. But I think I am going to widen the design here so that I can fit that in a little bit better. You know, if I can spell. Alright, let's just see if I can do this. It's not bad. I'm gonna need to kind of do some shenanigans though. So I'm deleting a couple of these points. No, I need that to stay there. There we go. Oops. I'm not really sure why it's doing what it's doing. Very odd. Oh, you know what? I know how to fix this. I'm like Bob the Builder. I know how to fix it. Fire is a good way to fix everything. Okay, so I'm basically deleting some of these points. Stick with me, we're gonna see if this actually works. So I'm gonna go do this. And sort of line that up a little bit more with the part above it. I'm just freehanded at this point, hoping for the best. Sometimes life comes out too. Oh, that intersection's a little crunchy, huh? I have a new theory. Little trial and error here. Let's do it. Okay, so this time, what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna go just do the upper section. Yeah, actually, that feels pretty good. I'm not mad about that. Although, unless I might just do this kind of the obvious way. I really just want these upper prongs to be wider, but I don't have such strong feelings about the bottom section. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Being as this is the centerpiece of the necklace, I am putting a little more work into it. But I think it'll be worth it. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So what I'm gonna do here, just delete this, and I'm gonna mirror this over the center point so that they're symmetrical, because you know I love a symmetrical piece. Then I just kind of have to do this little gap kind of section here. I'm gonna pull one of my classic moves here, which is that I actually only want these 2 lines. That's it. So I'm gonna copy them, put them on my clipboard, and then undo a bunch of the steps I just did, and then paste, and there they are. So now we have that repeating sort of gap here that looks like it goes underneath the other layer. Oh yeah, that feels really good. It's a little wider on the top than the standard Hades symbol. However, because she's got this little sprig in here, I think it'll look really good once we get the plants added. That being said, I have been modeling now for almost 3 hours. It is 11. So I think I'm gonna send you guys to bed here. I mean, you guys know I'll be up for a little while. But I'm gonna sign off. So thank you all so much for coming by. Thank you for letting me ramble about 3D modeling and 3D printmaking. I hope you enjoyed the lightsaber that I finished. I will try to post some photos probably on my Instagram story. That's usually where I do a lot of work in progress on cosplay stuff. I'll probably throw a couple up on Twitter as well, but if you really enjoy watching my work in progress stuff, I would definitely recommend following me on Instagram. I'm Elegant Feather Duster there. On Twitter, I am just Elegant Feather because they have a character limit. But I think I'm probably pretty easy to recognize on both platforms. So thank you all so much. I saw a couple of new subs, resubs, and like, we have lots of good emotes. You guys have been hanging out and entertaining me and talking to me about super nerdy 3D modeling stuff, which I always love to talk about. Yeah, and thank you, Uni Distrat, for the drive to make forbidden cookies, the inspiration. I couldn't do all the cursed things I do if it weren't for you guys. So I'll keep working on Persephone, and hopefully I'll have a set of files up for her eventually, but for the time being, thank you. As always, I am Dusty, Elegant Feather Duster. Come hang out with me next time. I'm trying to do a little bit more craft streaming. Things have just been super busy lately. I mostly post about streams on Twitter, so if you're interested in my streaming, generally Twitter's the place. But it doesn't matter. Follow me if you want to. I love you guys. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening.